Hey there! In today's video, I want to talk to you about how I've been able to keep my South American biotope basically maintenance-free and running on autopilot. But first, without going any farther, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for your support. As you can tell, there's a lot of plants that are overgrown in this tank, so I'll also be doing a maintenance session and I'll be talking you through step-by-step of what I'm doing. So for over a month now, this tank has been running essentially maintenance-free and basically on full autopilot. The only thing I've been doing to this tank is doing a water top off at the end of the week, because with it being an open system, there's a lot of evaporation. But other than that, it's been completely maintenance-free for over a month now. I recently got my hands on some red root floaters and I stuck them in this tank, and they've completely taken over, but I love it. I love the red coloration of the roots, and my fish love the surface cover. I've got a school of ruby tetras in here, which are a genuinely skittish fish, and they hang out in the open all day, every day because of the red root floaters. But I'm getting off topic here, so let's spin it back to how I got this tank to run on autopilot. So first things first, I need to specify that I'm not a scientist. I don't have exact answers as to why this tank is doing so well, but I have my suspicions. So I'm gonna share those suspicions with you right now. So the first thing I think is causing this tank to run so smoothly is the substrate. When I rescaped this tank into the biotope, I left a lot of my old substrate from the previous build inside. And I think having already established and used substrate, as well as the new substrate that I put on top, really helped solidify the base foundation for this aquarium to run smoothly. Most of the soil is capped with UNS Contra sand, which is just for cosmetic and aesthetic purposes. It doesn't really serve as a beneficial substrate. Another thing that I think is causing this tank to run so smoothly is the large amount of plants and the large amount of algae-eating livestock that I've got inside. Combined together, all with the filtration running 24/7, this tank is super clear and super pure. When I looked back at the build video of the South American biotope, I realized that I planted 8 different types of plants, all in large quantities. So there's a ton of plants in this tank already. So like I said, with the combination of the filtration, the algae eaters, and the large amount of plants, I think that's also played a huge role in keeping this tank beautifully balanced and maintenance free. Now, unless this is the first aquascaping YouTube video you've ever watched, you'll have heard by now that healthy plants equals a healthy aquarium. If you have dying algae covered plants, your aquarium is gonna get nasty real fast. But if you have healthy, beautiful plants, they're going to keep your aquarium clean, and it's all gonna be perfectly balanced together. Now, obviously, in order to have healthy plants, you have to have the right amount of light. On this tank, I'm running a very powerful light, but I'm only running it at 30% power. I could probably get away with a smaller light, but because I've achieved the balance with this light, I don't wanna mess it up and change anything, which could cause an algae breakout or for the tank to get off balance in any way. Something I did when I set this tank up was, being a biotope, I wanted to keep it as natural as possible. So when I first set it up, rather than scraping off the algae and brushing it off the rocks and the hardscape, I just focused on the glass and keeping the plants healthy. I wanted the tank to look as natural as possible, and I think because I didn't mess with it too much, it allowed the tank to balance quicker and stay balanced in the end. Now, it's important to mention that I didn't let the algae get out of control. If there were big breakouts on the wood or rocks, I still did some brushing, but I didn't keep it pristine and perfect. This also gave me an opportunity to provide a natural food source for my fish, like pygmy cories and autocinculus. So that's how I think this tank was able to start running on autopilot. Obviously, like I mentioned, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist kind of guy. So I didn't bust out the chemicals and take a deep dive into why it's running so well. But I think it's because I focused on the basics of aquascaping. And that was using good soil, using good filtration, balancing light, and focusing on having healthy plants. I think when you do those 4 things all in unison together, your tank will balance instantly, and you're just gonna have a beautiful aquascape every time. Now, when it does come to maintaining this tank, there's a different technique than when I'm maintaining my iwagumi. They're two very different styles of aquascapes. This is very precise, and you want to focus on precision with every single detail of this tank. With the biotope, you want to keep things running naturally. So the way you trim plants is going to change as opposed to the iwagumi. The way you clean your biotope is going to completely change from maintaining a perfect, pristine aquascape. Now with a biotope, obviously you want it to look as natural as possible. So you want the plants to look overgrown. You don't want things to be precise. You want stems to kind of twist and turn and wrap around each other and flow in the current. So let's go through how to maintain a biotope and make things look natural while at the same time keeping it in control and not letting it get out of control. So as with any maintenance session, the first thing you want to do is create your game plan. Looking at this tank, the hardscape looks pretty good and natural, so I think I'm just going to leave it, with the exception of maybe a little pick here or there. Obviously, there's some spot algae on the glass, so we'll want to make sure to take care of that. I don't see it on all the sections of the glass, so in this case, I'll just do a spot cleaning with my algae scraper and just get the areas that I can see. Now in the front, the Sagittarius subulata has completely taken over, and I've lost that foreground of sand. I want to get that foreground back, so I'll be doing a lot of trimming on the Sagittaria and trying to keep it lower than taller. My main goal of this maintenance session is to be as minimal and quick as possible. I don't want to spend a lot of time messing with things in here, and I want to make it look as natural as possible while also keeping it maintained and groomed. Taking a deeper look into the plants, I can see that there's some parrot's feather growing in the middle. Now a couple of months ago, I pulled the parrot's feather out because it was growing too quickly. So it looks like I missed a couple of stems. So I'll make sure to pull those out. Looking at the top of the tank, obviously the red root floaters have taken over. This isn't a bad thing because the fish love it, but it's starting to choke out the light because it's so thick. So without that light, the rest of the plants can't grow and the system will no longer be balanced. It is cool to see though, there is some bacopa that's growing out of the surface and through the red root floaters. I think it looks super cool. I don't know if I'll trim it yet. I think it's gonna be one of those things that I make the decision after I've taken the red root floaters out and do the rest of the maintenance just to see how it looks. All right, so the plan is in place. It's time to get my tools and get to work. So the maintenance is done on this biotope. I ended up doing a lot more trimming than I thought I was going to have to. Once I got my hands in the tank, I realized it was a lot more overgrown than I had realized. But with the trimming that I did do, it should last me at least another month or so before I have to trim it again. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and do so. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.